I am Gianpietro Lavado. I am the chair of the VNF Onboarding Task Force in OSM. This is actually my first presentation in this role. And I would like to share with you what's this task force all about and which are our goals and the actions we want to take. So, this year, the leadership group of Open Source Mano, which as you know, is basically formed by operators, proposed to the community to form this group, this task force, who is aimed to fill the gap of VNF onboarding. As you know, this is not an easy task nowadays. OSM is for sure simplifying it, but there's a lot of complexity when dealing with lots of different VNF vendors. So the first action took by the community was to elect a chair for this task force. And I was honored to be elected as the chair for the group. And this is a 2-year role, and but the task force is supposed to be permanent. And the main objective here is to make the VNF onboarding experience easier and achieve to make it a rewarding process for the operators. And I say rewarding because when we have VNFs really onboarded, and I will describe what onboarding is all about, we get near this zero-touch concept and simplify the life of the operators when deploying network functions virtually. So we've got a very powerful orchestration engine with open source Mano. And this is actually allowing us to be able to today build unique packages, VNF packages that will work over any infrastructure, right? So no matter if we are using OpenStack, VMware, or a public cloud like Amazon Web Services, Open Source Mano is able to abstract all complexities so vendors can build a single package that is the same all the time. I don't have to worry about infrastructure. Or, of course, NFBI. And then, when instantiation occurs, we call this day 0, and this is starting to mark a distance with regular orchestration engines that are not prepared for NFB. Because it's not only translating all the requirements of the VNF package to what the infrastructure, to the infrastructure the operator is using, but it's allowing also to pass some parameters at this instantiation time to adapt some networking particularities, for example, of the infrastructure. And also it's making VNFs manageable. Okay, and almost immediately after instantiation occurs, we have day 1. And day 1 is a set of actions that the orchestrator can take to make these network functions work as a service, as an end-to-end service. So at this point, we have a lot of responsibility put on the open source Mano, or in general, or on the NFBO platform, because it's abstracting the complexities of the NFBI, and it's also enabling the services inside the VNFs. And a third and very important capability that the Mano platform needs to fulfill is the day 2 operations, which is everything related to whatever happens during the life cycle and the runtime of the VNFs, of the network service. So monitoring, reconfigurations, closed loop interactions like auto-scaling, for example, automatic healing of the network services. All of these actions are also part of what we should be preparing at the onboarding phase. So there's a lot involved in the onboarding process, a lot of these, or all of these, day 0, day 1, and day 2 capabilities should be embedded in the package, in the packages, to have a real and complete onboarding. So it's not only instantiation, it's much more than that to actually leverage what the NFV concept is bringing us, is bringing the operators. Oops. So this is an important thing and demands a lot of work, and also the responsibility of generating awareness to the vendors so that they can easily onboard their VNFs to OSM. And to achieve that, the leadership group proposed a set of activities. Okay, and I'm gonna map the activities that the leadership group of OSM proposed to the actual steps we are taking as a task force. First of all, to be aligned with the end user advisory group. In OSM, all the priorities we set for features are based on the priorities of the actual users of the platform, or potential users. And this group is the end user advisory group, which is built by operators. So we need to be aligned with what operators need. And for that, we are having conference calls. We will start having conference calls every 2 weeks to make sure that we keep aligning and fulfilling the needs of the industry. Second, they proposed to consolidate the best practices, produce documentation, simplify onboarding through providing guidelines for this. So we are delivering a document called VNF Onboarding Guidelines for OSM, which will be a live document that will be improved with experience we get from the field. And the the main objective of this document will be to simplify the onboarding process to the point that VNF vendors can make it all by themselves, because they are the ideal parties to take this process, to take the responsibility, because they develop the virtual network function. Third, we were asked to create common or reusable components to simplify onboardings. And this involves the capabilities that OSM brings to make this process easier. And right now, well, as you know, the OSM has a very strong and complete information model that helps abstract all these complexities and makes onboarding easy. And of course, it has also a way to manage VNFs, so to implement day 1, day 2 primitives through proxy charms, which is the engine we nowadays use. The responsibility on the task force in this point will be to keep improving these tools, keep improving OSM, sponsor features proposed by the VNF vendors, for example, to make the process even easier over time. Fourth, we were asked to identify new features and user experience improvements and produce feedback to the technical steering committee, because it's not just throwing new features to the community, but also aligned with the actual group that is steering the technical decisions of OSM. So for that, we are meeting also on a bi-weekly basis. And finally, the main objective, I think, or maybe the ultimate goal of this task force will be to collect and publicize an active catalog of VNFs that are or have been successfully onboarded on OSM. So for this, we are publishing a new online catalog of VNFs that fulfill all these criteria and are able to be successfully not only instantiated, but operated over a virtual platform. So we have a call to action here. We are shaping this group. At this time, it's just me. No, I'm just kidding. I was elected a chair of this group a couple of weeks ago, and already received a lot of interest from the industry, from operators, from research institutions, from VNF vendors, They all want to collaborate in this process. There's a lot of interest in the industry to make this happen because everyone wants to see their VNF, the VNF they're developed, or the VNF they want to see working on their networks. They want to see it live and operating and automated. Okay, and so there's a lot of interest. I know this task force will function in a collaborative way. And we expect VNF vendors to join. Will not be the only option for VNF vendors to contribute. Maybe they can just feed the onboarding task force from the outside. We expect operators that are interested in deploying the VNFs they want, so to bring us new use cases, research institutions, integrators, developers, and any company that wants to see this catalog and just be able to pick from a list and select the VNF, and they know this will be a plug-and-play process. So the main deliverables, to summarize, are the VNF onboarding guidelines document and contributions to OSM, to the code of OSM, to simplify onboarding. So this can be, for example, contributions to the model, to have more attributes, to fulfill more use cases, or could be optimizations to the VNF manager, things like that. And finally, the onboarded VNF catalog, which will be a list that operators will be able to visit, and they will see hopefully the VNF of their interest onboarded in OSM already. And at this point, we want to give VNF vendors the freedom of choosing how they want to share information and to which scope. So some VNFs may only be able to share some information, maybe a contact that the customers can contact to get the extra information like packages or VNF descriptors. Others would be able to share the packages, and others may be able to even share demo images, for example. The idea will be to have a single point where all onboarded VNFs in OSM will be publicized. And well, as I said before, this involves a lot of work. So I'm putting here some of the activities that are expected from contributors in case there's someone in the audience already willing to contribute. First of all, for example, representing and or providing technical information about a VNF that you know is willing to join this task force or at least be part of the catalog. Second, to actually design the topologies of the VNFs, build the descriptors, build the scripts, and all the operations to automate the day one and day two actions for the VNF. Third, to contribute to documentation. As I said, we will produce this document called the VNF Onboarding Guidelines for everyone to consume, in particular VNF vendors, so they can onboard their VNFs by themselves. So we're looking for contributors that are also willing to contribute with documentation, with their own use cases, for example. Fourth, contributing to OSM, for example, developers that are able to modify the OSM code to fulfill certain features that will make onboarding easier. And those kind of things, or maybe design a new feature so that other development group in OSM can take it and make it happen. Well, there will be a lot of testing involved, of course, and for that, well, we always have the support of Etsy and a new infrastructure to test this out. So we will just need more contributors to make sure we test a lot of use cases. And finally, driving more VNF vendors to this effort, because the richer this catalog gets, the better NFV gets. So this is it, I guess. Final notes. And we will start meeting from April, bi-weekly, and we will have a mailing list and a Slack channel. Well, you just need to join OSM as a participant to actively be able to participate, or you could interact as an external contributor with the task force, and not necessarily being inside the group. So that's it from my side. I would like to take some questions now, if you have some. Yes?
Can you clarify when you talk about onboarding, what does that all involve? Entail how much of the scope of the overall problem of handling VNFs
Yeah.
is imparted in it? Because it's not just about lifecycle management, is what you're saying?
Yes. So we get a lot of questions on the value of orchestration, of NFV orchestration in general, because many operators are already working with some orchestration at the virtual machine level, for example. And the onboarding process in NFV is much more than that. It's about building a package, a VNF package, that will be comprised of descriptors of how elements will interconnect with each other, the requirements that this VNF has from the infrastructure. For example, performance requirements like dedicated CPUs, or a different memory distribution, or, for example, more throughput using some technologies like DPDK, SRIOV, etc. So all this has to be part of the descriptor, and is part of the onboarding process. Other things that are part of that should be part of the package beyond instantiation have to do with the operation of the VNF. So once it's instantiated, we have to initialize services inside the machines so that we don't see an orchestrator just deploying all the VMs and somebody accessing through SSH and throwing some commands to a VNF to see that the services actually start. We want all the process to be automated. So those scripts that make, or API calls that make these services start should also be part of the VNF package. And we should pre-design and pre-build those scripts and operations. And same thing from day two, for day two. That is, which parameters we want to monitor, which KPIs are the most important for the VNFs. Maybe it's not just regular CPU, memory monitoring, or disk monitoring, or network monitoring. Maybe it's beyond the infrastructure. Maybe it's the sessions that the VNF has, or the number of users, or any relevant indicator of the VNF. That also should be part of the package. The VNF vendor knows which parameters are the most important for the function. So that all should be specified in the descriptor so that the orchestrator can implement those monitoring points. And then be able to take action based on thresholds, for example, predefined thresholds that, of course, later can be adapted for a specific operation, but at least a basic thresholds definition should be part of the package. And a possibility of reconfiguring the component, because things change, right, during operation. So we need to be able to call the APIs that the VNF provides, exposes from the orchestrator, and be able to send at least the most important actions in an automated way. So this is a lot of things that we want to achieve from a single package, from a single process called onboarding. But we think it's feasible, and OSM is making things easier for that. So we just need to leverage all the tools that are there in place. Thanks for your question. Any other question? Go ahead.
So can you talk about the strategy for VNF management? Does this functionality occur through the VNF provider's management tools, or is there a generic, broader than lifecycle manager, or is there something in between?
Yeah, the approach we're taking in open source Mano is to have a generic VNF manager so that we can connect to any API that the VNF exposes or not. Maybe there's no programmatic way of configuring the VNF. We just need to log in through SSH and run some commands. The idea is to have an engine to achieve all that, independently of what the VNF exposes. So for that, we use an engine called Juju, and in particular, the proxy charm mechanism of configuring things, which is basically a set of scripts that are predefined and part of the package that are run from the orchestrator to the VNFs. And today, we have seen a lot of opportunities for improvement in that process, because building a proxy charm can be, I mean, it's a powerful engine because it lets you do a lot of things over your VNF, but it's actually difficult to build it. So you will see in the demo the steps that we are taking to simplify this process. What we want to do is for VNF vendors to just take an Ansible playbook, for example, or a Python script, or a Bash script, or a set of API calls that they know they work in a single file, on a set of files that they can easily build, throw those in a folder, and run a command to build a proxy charm for them. We don't want them to necessarily learn all the complexities of the proxy charm tool, but to abstract them from those complexities. So those are the kind of optimizations we're working on. Any other question? Well, thank you, and I hope many of you can join our task force soon.